Now we see.
Welcome, Canio. Here we go.
Fantastic.
Let's go. All right, so guys, let me just sort of make a quick introduction, and firstly, thank you to everyone who has joined so far. I think we're sitting at somewhere around about the 100 mark. This is obviously our first live webinar that we're running. It will be a host of many to come, so bear with us. Obviously, there will be teething problems. Apologies in advance if it doesn't come through clear enough. Again, we will work on that. At this present moment, I am in our office over in East Brisbane. George is over at his place, and Canio is over at his place. So we're practicing safe distancing rules. So that's we're doing our part for it at the moment. Now, just quickly on
just Michele, just a second. I've just got a couple of text messages from clients coming in asking whether this is going to be recorded.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, all right.
So I've got the recording happening. So hopefully we'll have a report at the end of it. So yeah. So firstly, thank you to George from Mad Loans for agreeing to come on today and guest speak about the current state of play. And obviously, Canio and myself will be here to take you through a few of things relevant, obviously, to the stimulus package. But I just want to give a quick overview of how it sort of will flow. So firstly, we're going to be talking about the current stimulus package update, and obviously looking at the pay-as-you-go changes and timing deferrals for BASs. Canio, do you mind, and George, maybe just putting your mute buttons on?
Sure, Michele.
Thank you. All right. So yeah, so we're going to start off with looking at the cash flow boosting package, followed by looking at how we can support apprentices and trainees, and obviously what the eligibility and timing criteria are for those, and then finally touch on obviously temporary relief for financially distressed businesses. So obviously what happens in the case of people looking at getting sued and so forth. We'll then touch on the side of George, looking at the breakdown of government-backed business loans and how that's going to apply to us. We'll look at how we can actually pause those home loans and business and commercial loans, and there'll be some examples flowing through from that. Some of the other parts will relate to, again, a refinancing benefit. So again, this is something that I've been speaking with George for a couple of weeks now, about banks obviously offering us, dollars to actually go and refinance across to other banks. And then we'll finish up with a breakdown of obviously the government stimulus and obviously how it applies to, the banking sector and world. So I want to make it an intertwined sort of webinar. So, we'll get things started. I'll be talking with Canio about a few things regarding the first section, and then dealing with George in the second part. So let's get cracking on this. Hopefully everyone can see the slides. So Canio, so tell us, under the current legislation, we now have changes like you've put out in your first couple of bulletins there. The stimulus package has been changed. The second stimulus package has come out. What are we looking at then in terms of the changes with PAYG, and maybe a little bit of an explanation on how that's going to apply with people and BASs and so forth?
Okay, no problem. Thanks, Michele. I just want to acknowledge that this is a very difficult time, and so the idea about these videos and the videos that I've been putting through at the moment is to sort of cut a lot of the noise and try to get down to the detail. So one of the things I was a little bit disappointed about with the media is on Sunday when I picked up the newspaper, I think the title was saying, $100,000 cash payments to small businesses. It couldn't be further from the truth. So let's look at how this works. So what the tax office is going to do now, what we want to do is try to get you to understand how the government's thinking here. The government knows that they're trying to turn down the economy slowly. They can't just turn off the economy in one hit. They've got to turn it down slowly. So what they're trying to do is have businesses keep their employees working for as long as possible. If they're working for as long as possible under the employer's purse, then the economy is still sort of slowing down. So the whole idea about this is to stimulate the businesses, not the individuals, to keep people employed. So the whole idea about this is that when you employ labour, you deduct tax out of people's wages. So what they're trying to do here is to provide credits to businesses for that PAYG withholding. So the actual mechanism of how it's going to work. Now, without getting too technical and boring as an accountant here, but when you do your BAS statement, most of you guys probably do it quarterly, some of you do it monthly. So the whole idea about this is it's going to be a credit to your business activity statement account, which we call integrated client account. So let's say, for example, that during the period between March and June 2020, you employ people and you have deducted, let's say, $20,000 worth of tax out of their wages. Well, when you lodge your activity statement and you have to pay the ATO $20,000, the ATO will credit that $20,000 to the side. So therefore, you won't have to pay. Okay, and that was the first part of stimulus. The first part of stimulus was an amount up to $25,000. What happened Sunday morning was ScoMo talking with Frydenberg was that they've actually doubled it and extended it, which means that in effect, the activity statements for March, June and September, if you're a quarterly lodger, you will get credits. So the first quarter is the March quarter, which means that the first payment will be made to your activity statement account by April, 28th of April 2020, which will be equal to the PAYG for the March quarter. So the question that I'm getting from a lot of people is, okay, well, what happens if I don't employ labour? As long as you employ labour and you have deducted tax, even if you haven't deducted tax, you will receive a credit of $10,000 in your first period, which is March to June's activity statement. And then you'll get another $10,000 credit between July and September, so in October. So small businesses will be guaranteed a minimum of $20,000 credited to their ATO account. Now, if you're a bigger business and you're withholding an amount of, let's say, every month you're withholding, say, $30,000 worth of withholdings, well, the idea would be in the first quarter, that'll be $90,000, which will be limited to $50,000, which is half of the boost of the economic stimulus amount. So you'll end up paying at a $90,000 level, $50,000 will be credited to your account and you have to pay the remaining $40,000. So that's going to be injected into your account. So am I getting a cash check? You're not getting a cash check. How can it be a cash check? The only way, and this is where the spin from the ATO, the only way that you're going to get that $10,000 stimulus package is, for example, if you are receiving, say, $10,000 credit and your, say, PAYG is only $1,000, well, that means that the balance there is $9,000, correct?
So just, sorry to interrupt, Canio, the $10,000 credit you're talking about is a GST credit?
No, it's a PAYG withholding credit. So let's look at it from a very small micro business who's only withheld $1,000 worth of GST in that first period. Well, then the ATO, you will lodge an activity statement saying that I owe you $1,000, which is a tax taken out of someone's wages. The ATO will then credit you $10,000, which means that you are actually $9,000 in credit. Now, obviously, because you're in credit, you're obviously lodging a GST return as well, an activity statement which shows you how much GST you owe. Let's say in that particular period, you owe $10,000 worth of GST. Well, that $9,000 credit on the PAYG area will run through to the GST side, which means you only have to pay $1,000 back to the ATO. Now, if unfortunately you're one of these businesses that has to basically stop and can't earn any income, then what we need to do is to ensure that, what's that, George?
People are trying to get in the meeting, but it says there's a maximum of 100 people already reached. I don't know if we can fix that. Again, okay. Everyone,
all right, well, I'll just keep on going in the background while you fix that, because this is important. So if you are unfortunately one of those businesses that have no income coming in, well, then those stimulus packages will actually be refundable. So the money will go into your integrated client account. If there's no debits, which is money that you owe the ATO that goes against that, then you'll be able to contact the ATO within 14 days to obtain a refund. Okay. 99% of you guys will have money sitting in your ATO credit account, and you'll be just using that to defer payment to the ATO and to use that credit against the amount of money you otherwise owe.
Okay, cool. So one question then on the timing deferral of ATO payments. So if we looking at lodging BASs, what are we looking at in terms of deferrals and time from the ATO?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. So in practice now, the ATO is saying, listen, because of this coronavirus problem, we're going to give you a 4-month deferral on your activity statements. So in effect, there's also on the other side of things, they're also delaying penalties and PA and GIC interest charges. So more so delaying, basically waiving. So in effect, if you lodge your June activity statement, the ATO will give you 4 months to pay that. You must lodge still to get the stimulus package. You must lodge. So please lodge. The ATO will then allow you 4 months to pay that, and they won't charge you any interest and penalty. So in effect, you are getting an interest-free loan on your GST money. Okay. So, which is great, but very scary at the same time if we're dipping into that money, because otherwise they're not waiving it. They're only waiving the PAYG withholding side of it up to $100,000 per eligible business, but they're not waiving the GST. So, we need to look at potentially mechanisms to ensure that people don't spend that money they're given.
Okay. And Canio, so the question we're looking at with regards to the second tranche of that 100,000. So obviously the 50,000 original breakup for the first couple of quarters, the additional payment eligibility. So apparently the business needs to continue on after that period for it to be able to be eligible for that extra additional payment. I think that's important.
So obviously this is a business stimulus package. It's not a free for all. So it's basically stimulating your business to keep on operating. So the idea is that yes, you'd have to keep on going. However, the first tranche of stimulus packages is what actually gives you the eligibility. So once you pass that first period, the payments will be automatically credited in the second period, right? So remembering that the first period is defined as between March 2020 and June 2020. The second period is July 2020 to September 2020. So the idea is whatever you withhold in the first period is what you'll automatically get in the second period. It's very difficult how the mechanism works. I'm happy to take questions on that to not waste anyone else's time. But the idea is, please do not think that you're going to get a check from the ATO for $100,000, right? You're only going to get whatever your PAYG is between March and June, and times that by 2 to the maximum of $50,000 per period. I can't stress that enough. You will get the credit of $20,000 in the 2 periods, but that's the minimum. And the maximum is $100,000. So it's not a $100,000 giveaway to most businesses. And I have to stress that because that's the number one question that we're getting all the time.
Okay, cool. Canio, just and everyone there, just having some difficulties with the access points. So I'm not sure why it's saying it's capped at 100 people, but we've actually got about 130 odd joined. So this will be recorded. It is recorded and will be sent out to all of you. So apologies.
One thing, Michele, we could possibly do if we want to get that out there, I'm quite okay. I'm sure that you guys are right to give up our time after this as well to maybe replay it, and maybe for the 50 or 60 people who can't get onto it now, if there's a problem with the program, once people have got their questions answered, we could probably just start it again from 8 o'clock for the other 50 people, because it's just so important that people are getting this information out there. So that's something I'm happy to do, Michele, if you like. And obviously everyone will get a video, but it's a good time of the night now where the noise has stopped in the office for everybody out there in the warehouse to probably listen to these things. So I don't know what your thoughts are that, Michele, but I'm happy to stay online.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm here. If George hasn't got a problem, that's cool by me. All right, cool. So let's just move into the next section here. So we're talking about apprentices and trainees, and obviously supporting those people. So tell us, Canio, about the eligibility and obviously the timing, how that applies to the apprenticeships and trainees worlds.
Yeah, so very scary for apprentices and trainees. It's almost like the kids that are going to school. They need to ensure that they're in employment because typically, with all due respect, they're the first on the chopping board. So the government is providing an incentive for your businesses that are have eligible apprentices and trainees that are registered with the organisations. What they're going to do between now and I think it's September, that as long as you, for the first 9 months, as long as you keep them in a job and you keep them there, every quarter you'll receive a $7,000 payment to the maximum of $21,000 per eligible apprentice. So effectively, they're paying 50% of the apprentice or trainee's wages. A fantastic stimulus amount. Considering what apprentices get paid, it's amazing that the government's doing this. So this is actually free money. This is one of the ones that I really like. It's not a loan. You have to pay it back. The government will give you $21,000 per eligible employee that is as qualifying as an apprentice or trainee. Now, I'm not exactly sure about the how to apply for this yet. I've been trying to scour all the websites and so forth to try to find the application forms. I don't even think they're actually out there yet, but you'd want to speak to your eligible training association or TAFEs, whoever you've actually signed up with the apprentices with, and they should have the forms. And don't
sorry. There is some information apparently on the Department of Education Skills and Employment website. If everyone out there wants to write this down, it's dese.gov.au. And the other one is Australian Apprenticeships website, which is australianapprenticeships.gov.au. I think the claims, they're saying that the claim subsidy will happen from early April.
Yes.
Final claims have to be done by 31st December. But again, like you said, Canio, I think the best thing for them to do is talk to the Australian Apprenticeship Support Network, because they'll have obviously all the details and point them in the right direction.
Okay, so there's a question there from Claudia regarding, can I take on an apprentice and training now and keep someone in a job and help them? I'm going to have to look at the detail there. I think they had to be eligible apprentices at the particular time, but while George is probably talking later, I'll start researching that and be able to get back to you, Claudia.
I've got the answer there, Canio. So basically, obviously the subsidy is available to people employing fewer than 20 full-time employees. And the apprentice or trainee must have actually been in training with a small business as at the 1st of March 2020.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. There's the answer. Now, the other thing too then is to understand that yes, 20 employees or less is the big thing, because it's not just a free for all. And remember what you just mentioned there, Michele, a second ago, is that don't get worried about having to put these papers in straight away. You've got to 31st of December to put those papers in and get backdated the amount. So I think this is a fantastic stimulus, because I'm all about those ones where you're getting money for nothing, which is what we really need in this economy at the moment. Like when George talks about loans, very important, but loan money is money that you eventually have to pay back. So we've got to look at that by case. Okay,
cool. So there was a question there. Can you take on an apprentice or trainee now to keep someone in a job and help us?
Yeah, that's the question that that was asked. So I think you answered that, Michele, by saying that you had to be in the actual scheme by the 1st of March, I believe you said.
Yeah. Okay, so guys, there's a few questions coming through. We've obviously got an hour allocated here, and obviously I'm trying to sort of divide it up between the two of us as we go. So I'll try and answer some as we go, and then the rest we'll try and get back to it at the end. Just moving on. So temporary relief for financially distressed businesses. Now, this is an interesting one. For those of you that obviously have kind of thought about this down the track, it is a big change. It is something that I don't think we've ever seen in our lifetime. The Treasurer has come out and made some changes to the Corporations Act and liabilities. So, Canio, this is an interesting one. Do you want to run us through with it?
Yeah, okay. So this is something that came up on Sunday morning. So I think this is the fair go test. I think we are so busy at the moment with this pandemic and worrying about how we're going to get through it in the economy. How we're going to get through to the next across that bridge, that ScoMo likes to say. So what they're saying is that, hey guys, we are going to reduce some of the red tape regarding the Corporations Act. You know, if you know me and Michele very well, we ad nauseum tell you about your rights under the Corporations Act and insolvent trading and so forth. Well, that's been tapered down a little bit. Basically, the threshold for issuing a demand is gone now to $20,000 from $2,000, which means that you really can't sue anyone or send out a letter of demand until they owe you $20K. Directors' liabilities. The other thing we're talking about here is the insolvent trading. You know, prima facie, there's going to be a lot of people who are potentially insolvent, you know, because we just don't know what's happening out there. We don't know how many customers are going to walk in tomorrow, and we're going to have labour that potentially comes in and not be able to pay them. So they've tapered that down. So in essence, you know, we don't have to worry as much about our rights as directors bringing on debt or bringing on expenses, knowing that we potentially can't pay them back. So that's been tapered. So that means, you know, when you might have clients that are suffering and can't pay you, well, you've got $20,000 now until you can actually issue a statute of demand. And the other issue that you have as well, and this is what is probably even worse than that, you've got to allow the person, the recipient of the payment demand, 6 months to get back to your petition. So in effect, we're on hold. So I reckon suing people is on hold for like 6 months if you want to look at it on a high level approach.
Okay, and that's so all debtors, creditors, personal liabilities, director penalty notices, and things.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're, you know, it's a freebie. You know, you still got the rights under the contract that you need to adhere to. It's just that the courts or the mechanism of getting some absolution for those debts is changed, and the thresholds have changed. So.
Canio, for small business right now, I mean, if you're an electrician right now driving around doing jobs, putting air conditioners in for $5,000, knowing that really, if you don't pay, you can't really do much because it's, like you said, the threshold's now gone from $2,000 to $20,000. That's pretty scary for small business owners, isn't it?
That's right. If there's no safety, I guess what they're trying to do is to try to let people know, hey guys, instead of you having to pick up your telephone, the first thing you're doing is chasing debts or suing people, stopping supply. Let's get through this together. We're all in this together. And if you've been watching, people have been watching my videos, there's no point ringing up your landlord or your supplier or your telephone company or insurance company straight away and saying, hey guys, I'm having a problem at the moment. I need to, I'm not going to pay you the rent, or I'm not going to pay my loan repayment, because all you're doing then is aiding and abetting the problem that we have with a cyclical issue. You don't pay the rent, the landlord can't pay his mortgage, the bank will potentially take back the property, and it's a vicious circle. You know, you could get locked out, you can't operate, so employees can't pay their rent. It's a cyclical thing. So at the end of the day, this is one of the things. This is why this is such a massive issue, is because, you know, we are all in it together. And so the idea is that if we start doing silly things like this, all we are doing is creating a cyclical problem that's going to make it even worse for us to get out of it. So the idea is that, yes, I agree with you, George. There is a massive risk for that $5,000 air conditioning installing job. But you got to do your own due diligence these days. We've got to change the way we do business. Does that mean that we have to get more of a deposit or so forth? Well, that might be the case, because realistically, one of the reasons why our viewers are listening to this is because they're smart enough to understand that things have changed and they're learning about what's happening. So maybe this particular slide is more important than a lot of other slides. So should I get more of a payment up front, knowing that, you know, I've got Buckley's chance of suing this person, getting the money for the next 6 months?
I think so. I think if you're a small business owner right now, plumber, tradesman, I think there's too much risk right now. People think that this is a bit of a freebie. I'm just not going to pay. Everyone has that expectation right now. Oh, it's, you know, can't afford it. Sorry. Well, the tradesman can't afford it. So I think tradesmen and all small businesses should be considering taking more upfront payment right now, knowing government has moved the boundaries for suing people.
Yeah.
2 to
I've
20.
got an example.
I just learned that. That's something I just learned that.
Yeah. Well,
I've got an example that I'll just share with you. So this is a classic. So Steph, Monty, and David own a small company operating a chain of yoga studios in Brisbane. Now, obviously, social distancing measures required that they had to be close together in a class, and obviously, as a result, things dropped off. The company is incurring more debt to the point where they can't meet its debts when they become due and payable. So again, normal advice that we give as part of our duty of care. Now, under the provisions of the Corporations Act, the 3 owners are actually personally liable if that business took on further debt without entering into an insolvency procedure like voluntary administration or liquidation. So, I've had a lot of clients sort of ring me and go, look, this current scenario, should I be winding up? Should I be closing the doors? The issue with this is that, during that 6-month period in which temporary relief is offered, this business can actually continue to run and open their studios and maintain customers and actually try and return back to normal operations and incur debt. So, yeah, the obvious situation here is that after 6-month period, if things haven't turned around, then we don't know what's going to happen from the government's perspective. Because like we talked at the start of the session, I think the reality here is that the government is looking at a 6-month window in hope. I really think that, unfortunately, the time frame is going to be a little bit longer than that, and it'll probably come to light in the next week or two, and I think the government start to realise the extent of the situation.
Michele, I just also want to add another point because what you've made me think about now by that point is something that I've had about 4 or 5 conversations today with clients. Now, how do we how do we be that person on the other side of the other side of the telephone when we get that phone call from a tenant or supplier where, hey, we can't pay the rent? Okay, so unfortunately, I had a situation today with one of my clients. Is a self-funded retiree. All they have is this warehouse, which is leased to a gym. Okay, as we know now, gyms have closed down. So first phone call the business owner rang is my client and said can't pay the rent anymore. How do I as a human being, but also as a business person, answer that question? And now, one of the ways I think you should be thinking about answering these questions when they do come up is the government right now is looking at the businesses as the place where the stimulus money is going. The stimulus money is going to the gym owner. It's not going to the landlord of that property. Okay, so what you need to do is go back to your tenant or go back to your supplier and say, listen, we are in this together, and you have got ability now from the tax office and from the government to help stimulate your business, your gym. Therefore, you've got to start looking at solutions on your side of the fence. The solution that you pick up the telephone and just say, I'm not paying this, I'm not paying that, is not helping anything. So the idea would be that gym owner should start thinking, okay, well, end of the day, I don't have to pay my activity statement for 4 months now, so there's money. I'm going to get that PAYG withholding credit. I've got potentially bridging loans that I can get from that George will talk to you about in a second. So that's how I would answer back that question. Just say, guys, well, that's an easy situation. Your gym's closed. I'm very sorry that it's closed, but that's life. We're all going to go through the closures in a second. But I think your first point of call, mate, is to pick up the telephone, speak to your accountant, or if you don't have one, get one, and have a chat about how you can actually get some stimulus money to help you survive. Picking up the telephone and telling poor people on the other side that I can't pay my bills, can't pay my suppliers, I can't pay my groceries, I can't do this, is, almost un-Australian. I think what has to happen is that do what the government is telling us to do, which is start looking at from the stimulus package and working back that way. Once you've worked out what you're short, then you can start making these conversations rather than picking up a telephone and telling people straight away that I'm not paying my bill because of the suffering I'm going through. I think this is a very important point to make. And I think that, and again, happy to talk to people on the side if this is happening to you, but you need to be very clever on how you pick up that telephone call when you get that phone call from your landlord, from your bank, from whoever your suppliers are, from the people who owe you money, to ensure that you don't just become someone who's just letting people off the hook to your own detriment. Okay, and I can't say that more emphasised as possible. That's what I think people should be thinking about doing is going back to people and saying, businesses, you're the ones that are getting stimulated. You go out and have a look at what methods you have to supply some cash flow, and then we can have a chat. Before you do that, everything stays the same.
Okay, great advice there, Canio. I'll touch on one question here from Alan. Alan has asked, what happens if we're on a payment plan with the ATO? Can we defer this, or we have to pay the regular payment on time? So basically the answer to that is that we are finding that the ATO are allowing us to actually delete those payment arrangements under the current situation. So I'll get one of the guys to get back to you tomorrow, Alan, on that, and make that happen for you.
Make no mistakes. The government has mandated to the tax office and the RBA and all these other entities to help people out. So the ATO has gone from an information bureau to an enforcement agency, and as some of you people on this line will know, the ATO has been absolutely ruthless in the last year to 2 years, issuing garnishing notices, that sort of stuff. It's been turned on its back. So basically now you will have the right to talk to the ATO, and they will start to listen, and you can tell them, hey, I'm not paying my GST, and I will go on a plan, and I need some more time. Okay, and they will start to listen. So the idea is take that 4 months for all the new stuff. Okay, make sure you lodge, right? Because if you don't lodge, that's the first point of call to tell you that, hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. But then at the end of that 4 months, if you are finding cash flow problems, then we can look at doing some deals. So yeah, good point, Michele.
Okay, one more question here from Ben. I'm an apprentice and wondering on what happens if my boss has no work for me. So again, this is bordering on the lines of HR. Please watch this space. I am in talks at the moment with one of our partners from HR Business Direction. We'll be looking at doing another live webinar like this with Lisa. But to basically answer your question in general terms, unfortunately, in the apprentice space, if you're stood down based on circumstances beyond the business owner's control, then unfortunately, yes, there may be issues. I know that you can pick up that apprenticeship payment if you move across to another employer, so that is available. But again, these things here borderline, and it is something that's obviously come to light in the last couple of days, given the forced closure, for example, on hospitality industry with restaurants and takeaways. So the advice that we've been given from our HR directive is that if your doors are forced closed and you're not allowed to operate, you are entitled to stand down those employees. Now, obviously, that's the advice we've been given. I believe that the employers will obviously communicate with the employees about this before obviously this happens. But again, it's a reality. You know, day to day, these things are changing. So we just have to be on top and keep up to date. All right, I want to move on now to George, and you know, look at a couple of things that we may be able to implement on this side of things. So, George, let's take us through the breakdown of obviously the government-backed business loans and what we need to know about it. How do we get into these things? You know, what are they all about?
So I really want to talk about these government-backed loans, and we'll talk about personal home loan customers and home loan freezers, and we'll talk about some other different things in a second as well. But let's talk on this because we're talking about business customers. The government has put away $40 billion, guys, to help small businesses like the ones we were all just talking about, rather than close their doors, to stay open. So their loans basically are up to $250,000 unsecured. Now, you would know, and I know, getting an unsecured business loan for $250,000 is unheard of in the past. That's why the government is going guarantor. Now, even if you were to get an unsecured business loan in the past, we're talking 10%. unsecured is a high risk loan. These loans are coming out at 4.5%. So they're pretty much halving the normal interest rate. Even better, the first 6 months, no repayments. So the banks are here supporting us with the support of the government, with the stimulus of the $40 billion. So you can get a loan right now if you qualify for up to $250,000 to keep your doors open, to keep your essential staff. And basically their interest rates are 4.5%, and the first 6 months repayments are frozen.
So George, you were saying to me a couple of days back that for people to get onto these things, they need to get in touch with you, and making sure that they're making contact with the bank to obviously allow time for these things to flow through.
Correct. So they're actually doing it pretty quickly. I've probably done 2 or 3 today, and the first 6 months is interest is still being charged, but they don't pay it, so it gets capitalized at the end. So every day the bank's still calculating how much money they're going to charge you in interest. However, it gets capitalized at the end of the loan. And also another thing to look at is it's a line of credit facility. So let's say it's like a huge credit card. Say that it was $100,000 and I only owed $10,000. I'm only going to get charged interest on 10 grand. So it's a bit of a safety net there to give us all a bit more comfort around these interesting times.
George, do you need to provide evidence every time we do a drawdown, or as long as the facilities are up to date and approved, you can just draw down as you see fit?
You draw it as you see fit. And it's to qualify, you need to be turning over less than $50 million, and must be for business purposes. So we can't be using this money for pools and things like this. So this is for established businesses who have been profitable in the past, who are affected by coronavirus now, and they don't want to close their doors because they've had their restaurant for 35 years and they want to keep essential staff. This is the 250 grand loan, which is keeping them there for, hopefully we see light at the end of the tunnel for 6 months. We've got a few questions, but I don't know if we want to go to these later on, gentlemen, or do them now.
So Nick's asked the question, is this the same loan mechanism the Queensland government is offering?
So I'm not aware of any loan the Queensland government's offering. I'm only aware that the banks are doing this, and the government is guaranteeing the 50% of this loan. That's the only one.
Yeah, George, just this is something that it's really interesting, because I think what Nick's saying, that there is actually a facility. Queensland government is doing pretty much the same thing, but it's been something that was almost like day one offered, $250,000 unsecured debt. I believe it's 6 months, no payments, first year interest only. It's to keep businesses employing and operating. I put my expression of interest down on the first day it came out, which was probably last week. Haven't heard back. So I think what's happening is that this new stuff that's coming out now with the federal government is superseding it almost. But as far as I'm concerned, Nick, that those loans are there with the Queensland government, and that probably is going to run parallel. But what you would do is you go to, I think it's the dreda.qld.gov.au website, and you'll find that.
That's good. I mean, if there's options out there with lenders, and if the government's doing loans, that's good. The more, the better, I think.
So George, just moving on to that next point there, pausing home and business commercial asset loans. So obviously the banks are coming to the party here, and looking at doing these repayment freezes. But how does that sort of work? What is behind all that?
So over the last week, I've probably helped 40 to 50 people put their home loans on freeze. So what that means is, if you are directly affected by COVID-19 and you've lost your job, or your business has had significant downturn. For example, I spoke to someone today and their business has dropped 90% sales. That's 100% a reason to put your loan in free. We don't need to try and be a hero. If we're affected by this, keep your cash. Cash is king right now. If the banks are offering on a huge scale to stop your repayments, stop them. Now, this is not just for home loans. This is for business loans. This is for commercial loans. This is even for car loans. The bank is being very cool about this, and they're allowing people to freeze their repayments, because I think cash flow is extremely important right now. So
I think that's an important point you just raised there about the credit rating, because I've had a few people asking the question on that, whether they go into these repayment freezes, if that's going to trigger this issue of credit rating. So,
yep. So from what I'm aware, and I've been asking the banks from when they first brought this out, will it affect my customers' credit rating? And no, it will not affect it, because this is actually, from what I understand, now check with your bank before you do it, but from what I've been speaking, and I've been speaking to the major banks, this will not affect our credit rating. We're all in this together. Everyone's doing it. Like Canio was saying earlier, even if they try and do everything they can with the stimulus package to keep their businesses running with the 10 grand, not paying it in GST and PAYG or whatever, even if all that stuff doesn't work and they can't pay rent, I think there'll still be landlords out there who just will simply have to continue making loan repayments even if their tenants aren't paying rent. So there will still be times when you need to put your loans into a freeze.
Yeah.
So
I believe APRA today has made an announcement to say that this particular type of funding under these circumstances won't affect your credit rating, as in like, yeah. So that's what APRA's brought out today. So again, I mean, this thing is unprecedented times. I think we need to survive, and you know what? The copybook, if it has to be blotted, then it has to be blotted. We need to get through this, and so yeah. But I think the official stance is it won't affect your credit rating.
Yeah, so just to put that one to bed, if you go into home loan freeze right now, it will not affect your credit rating. So I've just done a bit of an example here, because a lot of customers are under the impression they think that it's interest free for 6 months. It's not. The interest is still being calculated daily. So I've just done a bit of an example here. So Bob and Ann Samios, let's say their loan's 500 grand, their interest rate's 3.5%. It's P&I payments. So the P&I payment on $500,000 is $2,900 a month. So let's say if we freeze it for 6 months, one of the massive pros is they're going to save, as you see down the bottom there, 17 grand. So that 17 grand they get to keep in their bank account, which again, like I said, cash is king right now. Now, the way the banks look at it is, see here, every month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, their loan continues increasing because the interest is getting capitalized every month. So at the end of 6 months, my loan is now 507,000, not 500,000. And the loan term never changes. So when Bob and Ann, their loan term was 20 years. After 6 months, their loan term now is 19.5 years. So the only negative I see with freezing your loan is at the end of the frozen loan term, you're literally going to have to be, for example, in this scenario, $500,000 loan, they'll be paying an extra $100 a month. So does that make sense?
Yeah, there's a question there from Ben. Does the interest get capitalized, or is it a genuine freeze?
It gets capitalized.
And the question from John, who spoke to his NAB banker, was told that he could pause loans for 6 months, but then told on the 7th month that they'd have to make all missed repayments in one hit. Is that correct?
No. So as I showed you earlier, the way that I understand it, and I've been speaking to all the banks, is the loan amount in the end. So a 20-year loan term, okay? After 6 months, the loan term is 19.5 years. So the loan term doesn't get extended. It's the same loan term. However, the repayment will be adjusted now at the new loan amount. Now, a loan amount today was 500K, but in 6 months, it'll be 507K. So 507K over 19.5 years is $2,900 per month. So it's an extra $95 a month. You won't have to make all the payments in one go. Now, is this person talking commercial loan or resi loan?
Doesn't say. It's just talking about pausing a loan.
If anyone wants to ask the exact situation, obviously I'm fully accredited with all lenders. So I can check your individual circumstance after. If you want to, my information is in the last slide, and half you people probably know who I am anyway because we invited you to this meeting. So if you want to...
George, can I just cut in there for 1 sec? Now, this is what the issues are out there, right? Is that there's what officially is what the banks will do, and this is where George specialises in this. And there's the spirit of the legislation, if you can understand what I'm trying to say. So the idea is if Bob and Ann have got approval for a loan and they can only afford, in your case there, George, $2,900 a month on their loan, right? then all of a sudden, since their repayments have been frozen for 6 months, they now, when they get back to work, let's hope in 6 months, now they're going to have to pay almost $3,000 a month, right? Which is $100 a month. Some people, that $100 a month extra is just too much. So the spirit of this, of what's happening out there, and I hope that banks can start to understand this, and then there would have to be legislation, is that they will hopefully extend the term of the loan to allow you to keep paying $2,900 a month, notwithstanding the fact that you've capitalised some interest. But just to defend George here with all these questions coming through, you got to understand that when you sign a loan document to a particular term, that is it. Okay, the things that can change during a loan is the repayments, which could be a change because of the interest rates and so forth. To extend the term of a loan, as far as I'm concerned, what George has got a higher authority than me, it's almost like a rewrite of the loan. So you can't just assume that you're going to have a 6-month holiday in repayments and then going to tack on 6 months at the end of your loan. It's only going to be something that can potentially be government-backed and legislative, because you can't just do that. And I know that some banks are talking about that, but what George is doing here in his slides is based upon the law as it is now. So what we're trying to gear you up for is the worst case scenario. So in this case, yes, you have saved all those repayments and cash flow out of your household, but when you go back to normal, you're going to have to pay a bit more every month to catch up. Okay, that's what we're saying. If things change and we can start to see that the banks are coming into it with extending loan terms, then we'll adjust our advice to you. But right now, let's go on what we think is going to happen from what is mandated from our documents that we've signed, and that's exactly what George has said in his slide there.
So George, the question from John about the NAB loan, he just says it was not sure what the loan was. It was through the business, but for a residential block of land.
Well, mate, if it's a residential loan, it'll literally be, well, like I said, I showed you guys here. Commercial could be different, but from my understanding, not. But John, just get in touch after this webinar, and I'll have a look for you, mate.
Okay. Got another question from another John. What about interest-only loans?
Same.
Same. Cool. All right.
The only principal and interest, if you are currently in hardship from coronavirus, the banks are letting you freeze your loans, whether it's a home loan, car loan, business loan, or commercial loan, for up to 6 months. Very easy. So if you're concerned about what's happening and your business has been affected already, I think, like we said, cash is king right now, and I'd just don't be afraid it's going to affect your credit. Turn it on. So what about the people who, now, it's hard to look at this. These are terrible times, what's happening right now. Like I said, the last couple of weeks has been hard for me. Talking to a lot of my customers who have been dealing with for many, many years, going through hardship, it's hard. But the one benefit I can say right now is, in the last 10 years I've been doing this, I've never seen interest rates ever as low as this, and either would have you guys. I'm seeing rates, ANZ is now doing, I think I saw 2.19% fixed for 2 or 3 years. Crazy. And they'll give the customer $4,000 to swap over. Variable rates, mid-high 2%. If you're not in the twos, give me a call.
So George, just sort of butt in the question, because we've been talking about this for the last probably couple of weeks regarding the payment to people to refinance. What is the situation at the moment? Has that changed given the case of the banks running to try and put everything else into play? Is the experience still the same? Are they still offering these packages for people to move and swap?
They still are. Look, I know, in terms of my day and my bankers who I talk to on a daily basis, I would say 70% of my day is actually helping people buy property still, which sounds crazy, but people are still buying property. People are still building properties. People are still getting pre-approvals to buy their first house. People are still upgrading. People are still doing things. I know, we can get sucked into all the doom and gloom. However, people are still doing things. And so banks are, and they are huge companies and huge businesses. They still want that business. So they're still giving people, money to come to them, and business hasn't closed. The banks are still lending money. So don't think that they're not still doing business right now.
Okay. All right, cool. So Jordan's got a question there. He just says, will this have a negative impact on property market, and will the Reserve Bank drop the cash rate to zero?
In other countries like Japan and Germany, I was speaking to one customer probably a couple of months ago, mate, you put money in the bank and you pay the bank to keep your money. And that's something that I thought was unfathomable 2 months ago. But now I think that's probably realistic. I think that could happen. And I think you guys are the accountants, you tell me, but I think
Michele, you being a property guru here, I'd like to know actually your take on that question. If I can actually reverse our roles here and ask you a question. Property market, you know, you're always finger in the pie and having a look at things that's your interest. So, what do you think is going to happen with you know, first residential and potentially commercial property?
Well, it's an interesting question, you know, as soon as these sort of measures were on the table, and the virus thing you know, took our lives by sort of control. It's funny how the last 2 weeks have changed. You know, talking to our real estate clients and various other real estate agents, a lot of them probably haven't felt the initial direct pinch of the situation at this stage, given that it's early days. And so it's interesting that you know, you see these things like, you know, people turning up to auctions, you know, people still looking to buy. I think unfortunately there's a lag between the information that's being posted out there, the whole virus situation, and then putting the two and two together. So, you know, the last couple of conversations with a couple of agents dealing in some pretty good well-off areas, you know, the commentary from them is that they don't know what they're going to do tomorrow. They're going to turn up to work and keep calling these people and trying to get them to put their property online to sell. Now, the reality, if we think about the process here, we are going to have a lot of people in panic stages and panic mode. You know, people that, you know, majority are losing their jobs, majority of people losing their businesses. So the knock-on effect here is that these people, if they're distressed, are going to try and put their properties on the market to sell. Now, the unfortunate situation is that on the other side of the fence, we have people that unfortunately don't have the dollars and cents to be able to make those purchases. So therefore, my view on this is that unfortunately there's going to be a stalemate. There's going to be a situation where, you know, no one's going to want to sell, no one's going to want to buy. And I think, you know, it's funny, I've asked this question to a few people. You know, I said, if I could give you $1 million cash, you know, and you could do whatever you want with it, what would you do? And it's interesting. Some people just don't know, you know, right at this current point in time. A couple of people did say they'd go and buy property. Now, I have a funny way with that because, you know, not trying to be negative in this whole process, but unfortunately, yes, we do have 6 months of pain. You know, that is evident. It could be longer than that potentially. And so what I think the reality is going to be is that, you know, people are not going to have the dollars and cents to be able to play in these markets and purchase. So why would you go and buy a $600,000 property today or $1 million property tomorrow in the hope that these things are going to get better pretty quickly? I think the reality is the property market is and will probably take a hit. You know, and you know, it's almost like a reset. You know, we're looking at these measures, and we really hope that the government's going to come to town and obviously help us out here. But I think, unfortunately, those out there thinking that they're going to buy bargains and that sort of thing, I think you better think again. I really don't feel comfortable that, you know, this virus that we're dealing with is going to disappear overnight. You know, within 6 months. So yeah, that's my take on it. Hopefully, I've answered the question.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Ron's just said buy gold. That's an interesting one as well. I mean, look, at the end of the day, yes, we can go out and buy whatever we like, but we've got to have people on the other side with the dollars to be able to want to buy these things, and the viewpoint that things will get better. Now, again, will things get better? We hope so. It is a long road. It's something that we have to look at on a day-by-day basis. So I think the best thing you can do right now is keep yourself informed, listen to the people that are talking to you, understand the ramifications of what government are trying to put out there. But I think to work yourself through this, you do need to start to look at outside of the country and understand what's going on and what the impacts are in these other countries. And like Anya's mentioned in a few webinars, obviously us being of an Italian background, having family and so forth in Italy going through this crisis at the moment, we're in the similar situation here in Australia. We've been a bit slow to react, and I think that's we need to have immediate pressures resolved, to move forward. So that's my 2 cents on it. I think George, you were going to talk about just the breakdown of the current government stimulus package here with relation to obviously superannuation and so forth. So you want to just run?
Yeah, I was reading this before and I wanted to chuck it in here as well. I think could be relevant for a few people. So if you've lost your job or you had your hours reduced by 20% or you're on Centrelink, you can access 10 grand from your super this financial year. So that can help out a lot. Also, there's another 10 grand next financial year. You can pull straight from super. Now, they've also, Centrelink have called a new payment called the coronavirus payment. So normally if you're unemployed or they call it job seeker or you're on youth allowance or parenting payment, you get $550 a fortnight. That's the standard payment. They've doubled that. So now you're going to be getting $550 a week. Another thing, so students are also eligible for that. And obviously so are sole traders and self-employed people, as long as they're earning less than $1,075 a fortnight. These new payments start from 27th of April. The one-off payment everyone's probably seen in the news. The first one comes out next week, 31st of March, $750. And they're talking about doing another one now, which is coming out July 13 for another $750. So these are coronavirus payments, obviously to help.
George, that's great that you brought that up. Now this is where all the media attention is going to for our poor old sole traders, and a lot of our small sole traders. The guy that you mentioned before, who's installing air conditioning for $5,000 a pop with his van, he's not an employee. He's a sole trader. He doesn't employ anybody. What's he getting out of the sole stimulus? It pretty much, in effect, zero. If he doesn't have an apprentice, he's not getting the apprentice payment. If he doesn't have employees, he's not going to get the stimulus $20,000 payment. So the idea is this person here, I'd be almost inclined to say go to Centrelink ASAP, as long as you register. I think it's before don't quote me on it, I think it's the 13th of April or 12th of April or something. They'll backdate you up until from whatever your eligible time. So, for example, that bloke there who's had out of 5 days of the week that he installs an air conditioner, one a day, let's say, 2 days a week he's got cancelled. He's still got 3 days a week that he's installing air conditioners. Well, he's had a drop of 20% of his income. He should be going to Centrelink, and he should be getting, or he or she should be getting these payments. That's what's going to be the safety net for the sole traders. Now, there will be stimulus package 3, 4, 5, 6. Who knows? I think that at the next point in time, and it could be today, it could be tomorrow, it could be tonight, it could be tomorrow morning, the government will start looking at helping people in houses pay their rent and so forth. But that's where we're at the moment. So people who aren't in, I guess, big end of town business, who have just sole traders and have lost some income, then please go out and register. I can't emphasise enough to go get your MyGov registration and make sure that you start applying, even if you might not be eligible. I would suggest go out and register. You just don't know what's out there tomorrow. So thank you for putting that slide in there, George. It's and the other problem that we have here with Centrelink is it's because a lot of the focus on our client base is small business clients. They've probably never stepped into a Centrelink office and they've got no idea. So you need to start understanding that we are all this together, and you need to go out and register yourself and see what we can get to ensure that we can, again, build that bridge and jump over the other side and start fresh.
Just kind of had a question there from Marita. The job seeker is currently means tested. Couples around 400K in assets. Is this still the case under COVID?
No, it's all been lifted. So The idea is it's a separate payment now, so you won't. Your assets test and income test has been tampered a bit in terms of the assets test won't apply. So that's why I'm saying go and register yourself for it. Obviously, if you can't prove that you've you've lost your job or had a 20% reduction in your income, then you probably won't be eligible to get it. But you know, the government is helping people, and I know that as Australians, we're fair people. We're not people who are going to take the mickey out of this. And so for genuine people, go out and see if you can get money. If you have been disrupted by this virus, and I would like to see what planet you're living on if you haven't been affected by this virus, then I think you're quite entitled to make some inquiries, at least at very minimum, to Centrelink, and see whether there's something to help you put, bread on the table. I can't stress it enough. These provisions aren't for the people who have recently been retrenched. These are for people who have had no income coming into their businesses. I think you need to go out and make some phone calls. Us accountants and us people in home loans, these are things that because it's to do with income, people think of that accountants as specialists in this area. Centrelink and payment services is a minefield. It's very difficult. All we could give you information now is based upon what we've received, and what we received is exactly what George says. If you have suffered from the coronavirus and received and your income has been reduced, you will be eligible to a payment. Okay, go out and see whether they're eligible and start getting these payments, and then worry about it later. That's what I think.
Okay, Canio, I've got a question here from Haley. Sorry, guys, did you say that sole traders are not entitled to any relief from the ATO regarding quarterly tax payments? Again, that's correct. Remembering these payments for sole traders are based upon PAYG withholding. So what you take out of people's wages tax. So if you're a sole trader and you don't have any employees, then you won't be lodging PAYG. Therefore, your payment you won't get that $10,000 minimum payment. So that's why the whole media has been up in arms and saying, well, what's in it for these poor little sole traders? Because somebody might be told that they have to be a sole trader because we're not going to put you on the books. So we have people, gym instructors, a lot of them are sole traders. We have tradies that are sole traders that typically meet all the definitions of being an employee, but for some reason whatsoever, they're actually sole traders, or they won't meet these tests. Now, you can talk to your accountant about how potentially you can look at that provision and make it work for you a little bit better than what it is at the moment. But that's the black and white answer is no, you won't be getting anything regarding that provision and that stimulus part. Okay. Now, I've got a question from Giancarlo. So I just heard from Centrelink head guy today. If you don't have a Centrelink account, don't go into the centre. You need to stay on the phone, be persistent. If you line up for 3 hours to set up a Centrelink account, they will just tell you to call up and get a customer reference number, and then you can process things online. I did hear that there was a glitch in the system as well in the Centrelink process. Apparently, if you did log on online, you still had to provide some sort of evidence like driver's license and so forth. So it requested you to then go down to the branch and give them the information. I think that has been resolved as of this morning. So anyone that's looking for payments through Centrelink, best advice, jump online and hope for the best.
Could I just add something, Michele? I'm not sure how many more slides you got there, but this is I know on the line at the moment we have a lot of people doing it tough from franchisees that are in the hospitality business that are online. Now, let me just tell you a bit of an analogy about, and I've spoken to a lot of people about this. Now, yes, it's very, very tough, but the fact that we're in it together, this is an example. So back in 2011 when we had the Brisbane floods, now you might remember that suburb Rosalie Milton got inundated, right? So let's assume that you had a coffee shop in Milton, okay, and your coffee shop was inundated, okay, totally destroyed. The water came up, it's gone. The equipment is all seized. It doesn't work anymore. So George likes to have coffee. He likes to attend that particular coffee shop. He realizes now that that coffee shop is out of action for a couple of months until they clean up the area, make it safe, and redo it, provided that the business can actually get back on its feet. He then goes, okay, well, I still want my coffee. So he goes up the road to Paddington on the high side and buys a coffee from the local coffee shop. So therefore, that coffee shop in Milton has lost that sale. Also, what's happened is that coffee shop says to its barista and its wait staff, its cook, that I can't employ you for the next few months because we don't have a shop for you to operate in. So what ends up happening is those employees potentially get stood down and they need to survive. The coronavirus hasn't hit then. There's no disaster payments. They go up to the road and they put their resume into other coffee shops. And because they're so good, because they work for you, they've just received job offers and now they work for rival coffee shops. Okay. That's what it was like in 2011. That's what it's like in cyclones. I've got people who are probably on this call up in Townsville who went through the floods. However, today, different. The government has told your coffee shop in Milton to close its doors. It's told the coffee shop at Paddington to close its doors. Therefore, we don't have the same situation. Your barista, your waitstaff, your cook, he's not getting another job, right? He's not going somewhere else. So we have that, at least that bit of a safety net to understand that when we pause this economy, it is paused for all of us. We all have to work together. And when this virus gets done and dusted and gets out of our systems, then we start again and we all start again together. So you guys have got to make the right decisions now to ensure that you take advantage of what the situation we're in, and then so you can be on the front foot as soon as we get the green light to start trading again. I can't emphasize that enough. And therefore, remembering this isn't an economic crisis. People say it is an economic crisis. It's a health crisis that's turned into an economic crisis. So please remember, and I've said this on my videos again, because this is a health crisis, we need to do our bit. Leave the government do what they do. Leave your councillor, your premier, your treasurer. They're all meeting right now around the clock, trying to help out and bring provisions to the fairness and equity of us all. What our job is right now is to stay away from people, to self-isolate and be clever and be smart so we can eradicate this problem. As this problem goes, and when it does go, the quicker it goes, the quicker we're back out there at our fruit shop, at our coffee shop, at our trade site. That's the most important thing. All of the rest of the stuff, it will happen and we'll give you the information for the stimulus as it comes through. We need to be very vigilant and we need to be telling, and this is a bit of a rant and rave, I know, but we need to be telling our fellow people to go out and stay away, stay home. Trust me, I got to ring up my uncle after this, who's in Italy. It's his birthday today, and he won't be having a happy birthday at all. He's had friends pass away with the virus. He's been telling me for a month how bad it is. Okay, it is terrible out there. However, economically, we will get out of this. We are a very strong country. We've got a great economy. We've got a pretty good government, and we've got an absolutely massive, strong spirit in this country. We will get out of this, and we'll be very strong. But what we need to do with our little bit right now to ensure that we come out of this with the best possible chance. So please do our little bit. Let us, as your advisors, help out with feeding you information as we need it. But we need to all work together, and therefore all together we will start moving out of this. So I'm sorry if it comes out strong, but we need to ensure that that we do our bit and we recover and we move forward as a team.
No, that was beautifully said, Canio. Beautifully said. And that's it, everyone. We're all in this together and we're all here to help. So if you need help with, freezing your loans and getting through this, please call us. We can help you out. But no, Michele and Canio, thanks very much for your time tonight. I loved it. And I learned a lot of stuff myself as well.
Yeah, thanks, George. Thanks for your time. And Canio, thank you for being there and all the sort of information that is coming out of this. It is yes, a changing pattern every day. And we obviously can't stress it enough. Our teams are available. If you need to follow up on any of the information from tonight, we are all available. We are still all working while we still can. So what's that?
We're all working from home, the whole mad office.
Yeah. So yeah, look, I think obviously yes, the timing has happened. There's not much we can do about it now. Unfortunately, we have to just look at different ways and ways to do business. So for those of you, the clients that we've spoken to in the last couple of weeks, please keep at it. Please understand that we are, again, all in the changing times. The fact that tonight we've done this webinar is again another challenge that I think we all face in the face of this current crisis. It's making us look outside the box that we're in and go, okay, how can we do things differently? How can we help? How can we give back to people and get through this? So again, just to say thank you to Canio, thank you to George, thank you to all the people that have been on the panel tonight and asking great questions. Like I said, stay tuned. We will have the next webinar event live. I'm hoping that it will happen towards end of the week in regarding the HR situation and potentially looking at the legal perspective. So for those of you that haven't looked at your wills and power of attorneys at this point, now is probably an opportune time to start thinking and looking at those things.
Michele, can I just add something? I have been, for those of you who know me, I've been recording some up-to-date stuff and sending out videos. So if you aren't on the MURO list, it doesn't matter if you're a client or not. It's not important. It's not what I'm worried about. Please email either Michele or myself to those emails on the screen now, your email address, and we'll put you on the list to ensure that you get that. I'm happy to do my bit, and Michele's the same. If you have any queries, please email us some questions. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. And also, if there's anyone that you know out there that is struggling and is having problems with this or not understanding how this is going to apply, our offer to you is let us know and we'll help you. That's what we do. I was having a chat to Michele before, and I feel like a bit of a triage doctor at the moment, where what we're doing all day long is just triaging our clients, ensuring that they're getting the information they need and moving on. It's an amazing thing that's actually happening from us. Is that we now know what doctors feel like almost when they're telling people survival questions, and we're almost getting people's vital signs and giving them information and moving on to the next one. It's actually a quite lifting and moving experience, and we're getting a lot of sad stories. It's there's a lot of people crying on people's shoulders, but I think if all we can do here is provide a little bit of information to stop some anxiety and just give you some understanding that we're above all the information that we have, and we'll provide that for you. If that's all we can do, then please, on the bottom of our hearts, on behalf of George and Michele, get in touch with us. This is about a time of just sharing information. I've had other accountant colleagues of mine. George has had other bankers and brokers talk to us, and we're collaborating all the time. We need to be efficient. There's no point 5 people studying the same thing. I'd rather 5 different people study 5 different things and provide information, and that's what we want you to do. Okay, so go out there, look after your businesses.
Great point you raised, Canio, there with regards to that. The whole think tank situation, and the wind down sessions that we've been having in our office with our team, because again, every day everyone's talking on the front foot with clients. So being able to share those stories and share the ideas, because again, this is a reinvention situation. We need to be looking at our businesses from upside down and look at ways that we can actually start to put things together and go, okay, well, how I did it before 2 weeks ago is not how I'm doing it going forward. And that's a big thing, I think, Canio.
Yeah. Okay. So how do we leave it there, Michele? Are we going to, if there's any more questions, email them through, but we're going to have to say goodnight to most people so they can get back to their children and dinner. Yeah. So
I think we can give another 5 minutes or so.
I'm happy to stay online and answer a few questions. But guys, if you happy with what's happened, just exit the meeting, no problem at all. and we'll be in touch. And yes, this is being recorded. I'm not the most tech savvy person, but I'll leave it to Michele and George to get this copy out to you. Please email me your information, and I'll put you on the list, and I'll keep you up to date.
Okay, I've got a question here from Sal. Will loan measures include property investment loans and include within SMSF, so self-managed super funds? George?
I can't see why not. To have a loan in your SMSF has to be investment anyway. And if your tenant's not paying rent and SMSF now becomes affected due to the coronavirus, and I can't see it would be exactly the same process.
Okay, cool. There's a question there. Will this recording be available? Yes. Fingers crossed. I've pressed the record button, so I hope so. As soon as I've got it, I'll send it across.
Thank you for all your kind stuff as well. There's, Giancarlo, Andrew, Claudia, Seth, Alan, John, Robert, Rame, John, Zen, Sam, Eric, Katrina, Costa, David and Nadine, Leanne, Ramsey, Helen, Sal, Freddie, goes on, Matt, Jordan, Fredo. Thank you for it. Does mean a lot to us to feel that what we're doing is helping. This is not a marketing ploy whatsoever. I can count on my hands how many billable hours I've probably billed out in the last 3 months, or when this is happening, and in the last 3 weeks has just been helping people. So it's about that. So thank you. It does give us a bit of a lift when we do find that the content that we actually are providing you guys is helpful and makes a bit of a difference in your lives.
All right, guys.
All right. Don't think there's anything else really, is there?
No.
We'll give you 20 more seconds, guys. If there's any more questions, just please write one now. If not, we'll probably draw that to a close. And apologies for anyone who got cut off at the front. We're not sure what happened, but we'll ensure that at least the video goes out and you'll all have your questions answered.
Yeah, we'll have a look at that, because we did have there were a couple of people that said they logged in and they couldn't get in, and they tried again and they did get in. So I'll follow up with Zoom on that. That's not happy with that one. But anyway.
Okay, here we go. We've got a question. Daniela, I have a question about training apprentices thing. Okay, so Daniela, if you can write that out for us while I'm checking everything else. Marita, I love your comment. She had to sit under a dinner table with headphones not to miss it. Obviously got some children there. Okay, Jordan, okay, thank you for letting me know what that was.
Duncan's got a message there, George. I missed part of your chat. Had to put little one to sleep. If we have a construction loan, will they freeze the interest repayments on that or not? So these guys, I think, are obviously building a house. We've got a construction loan. Will they freeze those interest payments on that construction loan?
Yeah, I can't find that question, but I can't see why not. So a construction loan is progressively drawn. So I don't know if they're halfway during the build, or are they finished the build?
I think they're halfway through the construction loan.
I can't see. Yeah, again, get in touch with me, mate, and I'll check with the bank for you. But I can't see that would be the same thing. Just because you're in a construction loan, you're still affected by the coronavirus, and the banks are here to help soften that blow by freezing repayments. So give me a call. I will give my office a call, and we'll see what we can do for you.
Okay. So we're just waiting for that. Okay, yeah, Giancarlo's got some more information there, but I'm just waiting for